Hey, I see what you did there. I like that. Season of the Witch Burner.
Nice.
Guys, are you ready for the most incredible show you've ever seen in your whole entire life?
Oh no.
I
Oh
hope
no.
so. I hope so, because that's what we're delivering tonight.
Oh no.
Vic, do you
Woo.
think we can back up these words I'm saying?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Hey, did
If
the
we get
echo come through?
No, I don't hear an echo. I don't hear an
Oh,
echo. I don't
well,
hear an echo.
I
I don't hear
actually
an
had this
echo.
stream playing in another window, and I had to shut it down real quick.
Oh, there you go. It's your
Yeah.
fault. That's your fault.
So, I posted it up on my Facebook page, and there's a thumb, if you haven't seen it, Season of the Witch. And I don't know if anybody takes this the wrong way. I mean, hopefully they understand what I meant. But I said, Vicki Joy is in the house, and then it says Season of the Witch. So they know I'm not calling you a witch, right? So,
Well, I deserve it because I laughed a lot. We had that like little video montage once, and you and Kenny and somebody else were saying like world's largest bobblehead, and then it cuts to Colleen, and I used to laugh. I used to laugh at that, so I deserve it.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That was some unfortunate timing, not planned out, by the way, but
I love it.
Yeah. All right. Well, what do you got?
Well, I could turn on all the lights, and you guys could see how my Bucky cup glows in the dark. That's
Okay.
all I got.
We'll save that if we run out of all other ideas.
Got that in the back pocket.
Yeah. Hey, anyway, no, seriously, how you been doing over there?
Good. It's been a while.
Yeah.
It's been too long.
You've been doing some traveling, been doing some camping.
Yep, I have. Yep. I did a conference in Land Between the Lakes, Kentucky. Have you ever been to Land Between the Lakes? It's kind of an eerie, spooky little cool area.
Where's that at?
It's in Kentucky. It's not that far from the Tennessee border. Lots of like dogman sightings, lots of mounds, lots of cool history in the Woo area.
Did you see any dogmen?
I did not, but I was not actively pursuing it either.
Okay.
Yeah, stayed in a super awesome bed and breakfast, which was absolutely super cool. Okay. I did a little tour of it on my Instagram. So if you go to Instagram, it's one of the lives from like a week or so ago.
Yeah.
And I was told, this is cool, you'll like this. The morning after I was at breakfast, and the innkeepers asked if I had a nice night. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, because you're in the room that everyone says is haunted. I'm like, well, thanks for telling me that after the fact. But no, I slept like a baby.
Cool. Did you tell them about your book?
I think they already knew about it since I was there speaking. And in fact, the innkeeper bought a copy of the book. So thanks,
really?
Joey. Shout out to Joey.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. Man, I'm trying to think of anything that I've done. I don't think I've done anything exciting.
Wow. So I'm sure you've been busy though.
Yeah, I'm sure I have. Well, still I have been really involved in this local church. Yeah. That I'm a part of, and I'm speaking about once a month, and it's going pretty good. It's really a unique situation, and if anybody's been listening to for a while, they've heard me talk about this. But I just want to praise God for this. This is all God doing this. And it's an opportunity for me to get plugged in locally. I'm always going out, wherever, and doing conferences and doing ministry, which is great, which we still do. But now I'm connected locally. I taught a class tonight, and tonight the class was on pharmakia. And we talked about addiction and the psychological, the physical aspects of it, the spiritual aspects. And we talked about street drugs, over-the-counter drugs, all of these things. And the class was very diversified as far as age was concerned. So all the way from like 30 years old or 27 years old up to 86.
Whoa.
And everybody had stuff to add. It was really cool. We talked about how we're not a big fan of doctors and hospitals and things like that. And I was surprised. And there's one just awesome lady there, and her paradigm always gets rocked, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, what? I didn't know this. I didn't know this stuff. And but she's eager to learn, and she's taking notes, and yeah. So it's really cool. I have my friend Rob, who of course you met. He's been teaching the class with me, and I don't know, it's really cool to be able to share the stuff that we talk about at conferences and on the show. Now, obviously, I'm not going full through the black, right? I am holding back there, but we are, I'm testing the waters with some of the stuff, that I talked about. And then I just spoke on Sunday morning, and it went well. And man, I got so many people just thanking me for the message I gave Sunday morning. And again, I give all glory to God. It's really cool just to be able to, to share. I didn't ask for this, but the Lord opened the door, and we're partnering in some ways. And I'm going to be sharing about this more in the future, but I'm on the leadership board, and we're partnering with Through the Black. And I have been talking about this. One of the things that we're going to be doing, and we're going to announce this as soon as we know something, we're going to be doing freedom encounters at the church and teaching people how to do freedom encounters, training people. There are a couple people that are eager to learn. They're like, yeah, I want to learn how to do that. Cool. Okay. And part of the class tonight was talking about, we have the answer. Christians have the answer to the drug epidemic, the drug trafficking in our country, right? So, and getting set free from addiction. So, but anyway, just to kind of touch on that again tonight, Vic, one of the things we were talking about is some people kneel down at an altar and pray and repent and get up, and they never drink again. And they never drugs, they never even are tempted with it again. And then some people struggle, with it. And I don't know why it is, that people react differently. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
God is, the same God. And we've talked to a lot of people that are like, man, I just want to get set free, and I want God to free me. And we try to nail down, like, what is it exactly, that is not happening here, because they seem sincere in wanting to get free, but it's just got a grip on them. Yeah. I mean, I know you've talked to people like this. What do you, how do you kind of zero in on that kind of stuff?
Well, it's interesting that you had mentioned that, because as a lot of people know, and who have been following me over on Instagram or YouTube, my friend April and I, we've been doing tons and tons of research recently on parasites, demons, and fasting, all three, and how they may or may not be linked together. And so we've just been on this exciting journey. We always joke that if the, alphabet agencies ever like tapped our phones, they'd be like, what is wrong with these girls? Like, all they talk about is like parasites. It's like not the typical chick conversations going on. But we have read, we have had testimonies come in, and we have both have personal experiences, ironically, that if you do longer therapeutical fasts, like we're talking like maybe 10 days, 21 days, those types of fasts. And if you do dry fasts, especially, which is no water, so you're not eating or drinking, and at an official, like hardcore dry fast, you aren't just not drinking water. You're not making any contact with water. You are not brushing your teeth. You're not showering. You're not washing your hands, like nothing like that, right? And so we are discovering through our research and through the people contacting us that people are telling us that after they did lengthy therapeutical fasting, it broke addictions. And I'm not talking like, here's my story. I did a fast at the end of 2020, and I never drank Diet Coke again. I was totally addicted to Diet Coke. Surprised I have a tooth left in my mouth. But so I'm not talking silly stuff like Diet Coke. I'm talking people are contacting us where alcoholism, infidelity, pornography, and even same-sex attraction, after they humbled themselves through a fast and did a lengthy fast, addictions were actually broken. And it just makes me think of the verse that talks about Jesus saying some only come out by prayer and fasting. I think that there's a physical and a spiritual element to that. You can get someone in a freedom encounter, and you can, if something manifests, you can cast that out and they'll be free from it. But then, like you're saying, sometimes people, they are set free and they come to Christ and they are a child of God, but then they still languish with these physical addictions. And I think that part of the prayer and fasting combination is that the prayer can do the actual freedom encounter and the fasting can actually work on the physical addictions.
Wow. So it's been almost 2 months now where you guys did that show on this channel.
Yeah.
And I was having serious internet problems that night. We were on location, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I sat there and listened to 75% of it, but it was still choppy even when I wasn't in the show. But I don't know. I don't feel like we're done talking about that topic on this channel, and we gotta do a follow-up to that.
Definitely.
And find out what you guys are finding out. I don't know. I think it's interesting. You piqued my interest, and I don't know. That's fascinating. I don't know. I don't even know what to say about it. I want to hear more is what I want to say. Yeah. So
it's crazy. It's crazy. No one's been more shocked than me and April. And we put everything into practice. So like before we get online and we say, try this, try that, we will try it out ourselves. And, we're putting our lives on the line. Like seriously, like the whole, like, you can't go 3 days without water. We're like, okay, well, let's see if we can. And so April has me beat. I think she's gone 10 days. I think she's gone 10 days without water. I know she's done some 7 days. I've done 5 several times.
And Vic, as you're talking, Katie's throwing up the YouTube page there showing all the stuff that's out there.
You. Yep. Episode 6 is about to drop on Monday. And, I have always heard that the standard YouTube video should be 15 to 20 minutes. That's like the sweet spot. And we've gotten so much feedback. In fact, I even did a poll on my community tab, and almost 70% of the people said we want hour-long episodes. So we're going to record some more episodes in the next few days. And so we're going to up the ante and make those episodes longer in the future.
Yeah. Hey, and before I forget, obviously, Vicki Joy, part of the Through the Black show. And for anybody that's coming in late to this, I mean, there's tons of archives of you and I covering so many topics. You can go to throughtheblack.com and click on a link on the resource page and see all that. But also your book, and I mean the main book, they only come out at night. That's the big one, but there's other books as well. So how does everybody find your stuff, Vic?
Yeah, basically the one-stop shop is my website, vickijoyanderson.com. And so if a book is on Amazon, it'll take you there. If it's on L.A. Marzulli's site, it'll take you there. So that's kind of the easiest place to go. It's just vickijoyanderson.com. And if you click on the media tab, you will have pretty much the full archive of every podcast I've been on, and that's all free. I probably have like a month or so I got to put up there, but for the most part, if you got nothing to do on a weekend, there you go.
Sweet. Awesome. Yeah. So archives at Through the Black and archives at Vicki Joy's Instagram and YouTube channel. Man, you have been a busy girl. So congrats on all your stuff.
Yeah, well, I've said this before, but I'll say it again. If you rewind all the way back, I mean, yeah, you can look at L.A. Marzulli and you can look at the book and you can look at all these like blessings that have rained down from heaven on me. But Through the Black were the very first people that gave this absolute known to nobody a chance in my writing for Real Dark News. So I owe it all to you.
Hey, you know what? All praise to God. We were just glad to have you hanging out with us. So
It's been a
it's
blast.
been a cool ride, right?
It has been.
So yeah, and for anybody that doesn't know, I heard about your book, The Emperor's New Gender, right?
Yes, correct.
And we made a movie with called Fire and Brimstone, and I was like, man, I want to do something special. So we got 100 copies of your book and gave them out for the first 100 copies of the movie that sold. And then I met you in Texas, and the rest is history.
Is history.
So
yes.
we have been warriors for Christ together ever since.
Absolutely. That was such a huge encouragement to me, because that was a real leap of faith for me to publish that book, because I didn't know who would come out of the woodwork to attack me for the stand I was taking on that. But I always like to tell this story. I know people have heard it before, but when I saw you for the first time in Dallas, you were walking by and you were on a mission, like you were making a beeline, right? And I was like, hey, Troy. And you look at me, you're like, no. You just kept going. I was like, oh no.
I don't remember this.
Because I think there is a Troy Dunn. There's someone like on
Is there?
TV or a producer or something. I can't remember. Every once in a while I come across it. So there was a reason why I thought that. But then I'm chasing you and you're looking back like, well, who is this chick? And I'm like, no, Tom. It's Tom. Sorry, man.
I remember when I met you, it didn't click. It took like 2 seconds to click. And I couldn't remember your name, or I couldn't remember the name of the book. One or the other.
Yeah.
So there is a Troy Dunn. Okay, well.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, yep.
That must be the mistake. Vic, I thought of something I did. I thought about something I did while we were both off doing our own thing.
Okay.
I went to Battle Creek, Michigan, and my daughter invited me up there. So it was my daughter, my granddaughter, and myself going to our first protest together, where we went to the park there. It's called Friendship Park. And man, this protest, it was all over the news. It was on Good Morning America. And this girl named the Food Babe, Vani Harari, something like that. I can't remember what her name is. She took all these petitions to Kellogg's to ask them to stop putting certain chemicals in their food and their food dyes. So they'd already promised that they would do it years before, that they would take it out. They don't put it in other countries because it's illegal, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in the United States, they don't care because the government's not making them, and the FDA or the CDC or whatever has been bought off by lobbyists. So they put these chemicals in these food dyes that are not safe for kids. Okay. And when you think of Kellogg's, you probably think of Fruit Loops. And we were there in this park. Actually, I recorded the whole thing on this channel, Through the Black, and you guys can go back and watch this. And there were all kinds of people there, giving speeches. I guess the most well-known person was Callie Means. I always get Casey and Callie mixed up. It's a brother and sister. Do you know who this is? Have you heard of?
I don't think so.
So they wrote a book called Good Energy, which is about metabolism. Okay. And it's about, exposing ultra processed foods, exposing microplastics, all of these things. And the brother was there as well. And I've seen him on Joe Rogan. I've seen him on Tucker Carlson. So he's been on there with his sister, and they've been just really getting a lot of attention because RFK Jr., there you go, Good Energy
Mhm.
is the name of the book. I've started that book like I've started a lot of books, but I think I need to either listen to it or just watch a lot of interviews because I don't know if I'm going to make it through reading that book. Anyway, yeah, they've been all over the place doing interviews, and actually Callie, Callie means the brother. I think he's responsible for connecting JFK Jr. and Donald Trump. And that's how, what I say, JFK, RFK Jr., Robert
Oh,
Kennedy
okay.
Jr., yeah, and Donald Trump. And that's how they kind of decided to join forces. And anyway, it would be really great if, you know, obviously we have just a few days to the election. Nobody knows what's going to happen. But in a halfway, I hate to say in a perfect world, things would be a lot different. But if he got in there and he was allowed to go after these food companies and demand that they, take out all of these chemicals out of our food, the glyphosates, just the things that they're putting in the soil, the Roundup, all of these things that are just dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something, because my daughter is a new mom, this is something that she's really been watching closely. And it was, something that she wanted to be a part of. There was also, who's this? I want to say Alex Clark. I don't know who that is, but my daughter follows her podcast. And I guess she listened to this girl's podcast. I don't know who any of these people are, but apparently they're trendy. And that's who kind of, this podcast was what convinced her to have a home birth. So anyway, yeah, lots of information. That's what I've been doing. I just wanted to be, I wanted you to know, hey, I haven't been doing nothing over here.
I didn't figure. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of ironic that they're holding protests in Friendship Park.
Yeah.
Did they have to rename that?
No, because it was very friendly.
Was it a friendly protest like in Minneapolis?
It was not like that.
Okay.
But I wish I could remember the signs. They had some really clever signs, for, using like some of the Kellogg's, slogans and stuff like that. Like, maybe something like, instead of Fruit Loops, like Fake Loops or something like that. I don't know. That's a bad one. I don't think that was a sign, but yeah.
Well, to kind of add to that, just so you know, this has been going on for 30, 40 years. So my dad worked for Abbott Laboratories for many, many, many years, I think close to 30 years. And so he was always having to go to these seminars and trainings and things, because you're working in hospital labs. So your main clientele are highly PhD, educated physicians who are running laboratories in major hospitals. And so if I remember correctly, I believe Kellogg's was, at least back then, was a Minneapolis-based company. And so they had some come in from Kellogg's giving all of this information about their nutritional and all the like data on their cereals and how good it was for you and all the vitamins and this and that. And someone sort of picked up on a nuance of what he was saying. And they posed the question to the guy and said, did you just say that all of the vitamins and minerals and nutrients is from the milk that we're pouring onto the cereal? And he basically admitted yes. So back then it wasn't glyphosates and actual like toxins, but he was basically admitting there was zero nutritional value in the crap unless you put the milk on it.
Vic, since we're talking about this, I do want to say that I am cold turkey off of Captain Crunch, I think 3 months now.
How can you eat that? It rips your mouth up.
So where there's a will, there's a way. Yeah.
I am convinced that the only reason my brother ate Captain Crunch is so that he wouldn't have to share it with me, because I liked it, but I couldn't handle more than 3 bites. My mouth was tore up, man.
Huh. Okay. Never heard of that before, but
Come on, chat. You help me out. You know what I'm talking about.
now I will say honeycombs.
Oh, those were awesome.
Honeycombs, they tore my mouth up. I couldn't. They were
No.
so big. Yeah.
Oh, I loved them. I'll bet you they're not that big anymore. Us Gen Xers, those honeycombs were massive.
Yeah, they were. Especially when you're a kid.
And thick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
oh my gosh.
yeah. So, hey, we're not promoting cereal on this channel, but just for fun, tell us what your favorite cereal was in the chat. I'm curious.
Yeah.
Honeycomb tore up the roof of my mouth. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. Come on, Captain Crunch people. Come on.
Yeah.
Captain
Crunch tears up my mouth.
I think my favorite was Captain Crunch was back. Okay, thanks, Silver the Woods. Yeah. I think Lucky Charms was my go-to for a very long time.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had to quit eating Fruit Loops because it would take me so long because I would eat them by color.
Oh no.
Yeah. And I couldn't quit. Like, I don't know if that means anything, but yeah.
That's harder to do in cereal. That's a lot of messing around, because I would do that with my M&Ms, but I had control. Like, it wasn't getting soggy.
Right. Well, yeah, and that was the reason you had to try and go quick. But I would always leave like the red or the blue last. I don't know why.
Interesting. So you were not Roy G. Biving it.
No, I was not. I don't know what that means. Somebody said we got Fruity Pebbles, Fruit Loops.
Oh yeah.
Now somebody said Count Chocula.
Yes. Oh, I got trivia for you.
Yes.
There used to be 4 monster cereals, and one got pulled off the market. Do you know the shelved monster cereal? So there's Boo Berry, Count Chocula, Frankenberry.
I don't remember.
I never saw it. I might get this wrong. It had something to do with a mummy. It was like Yummy Mummy or something like that. Help us out, Katie.
Here, I don't remember this, so I can't see this.
I thought it rhymed.
Shelved monster cereal, Fruity Yummy Mummy.
Yummy Mummy.
1987. However, it was briefly relaunched in 2013, 2014 before being shelved again. Yummy Mummy, although not explicitly stated as shelved, it's mentioned that Yummy Mummy arrived on store shelves in 1987, but some cereal purists don't consider an official member of the Monster cereal lineup. This implies that it may not have been widely available or consistently produced over the years. Interesting. Hey, Vic, like I never really ate the Monster cereals when I was a kid.
Okay.
I mean, I liked Captain Crunch, Fruit Loops, Smurfberry Crunch was one that I ate.
Oh, wow.
I tried 3POs, didn't like it, didn't like Mr. T.
Oh, I had Mr. T cereal once.
Did you?
I didn't like it, but yeah, I had the Mr. T cereal.
Yeah. I wasn't crazy about Lucky Charms. I mean, of course I like the marshmallows, but
yeah. A friend told me one time, you got to separate it, like eat just all the marshmallows, and then that didn't work for me.
Well, I would eat all the regular cereal first and save the marshmallows for last.
Yeah, see, I couldn't do that.
Blue Diamonds, I would eat my all the marshmallows by shape, you know,
in order of the commercial. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, well, not in order of the commercial, but just in my own order that I made up. So, yeah.
You rebel.
But Blue Diamonds, I always did last because for whatever reason, I like the diamonds better. So,
yeah. Then they introduced the purple horseshoes. Remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that.
Purple horseshoes.
Purple horseshoes. That was like revolutionary. Like, it it made you go back to the cereal. If you had left the cereal, you're like, man, I'm going back for
Oh,
purple
yeah.
horseshoes.
Gotta try the purple horseshoes.
Yeah.
Did you ever catch on how many cereal commercials promoted greed? Like you couldn't share?
Oh, well, of course, the famous one is this doesn't fit, but Mikey likes it. What was that?
Oh, Life cereal.
Life cereal.
Yeah. So they're always after me Lucky Charms. Remember,
Yeah,
he's always
yeah.
hiding. But then I vaguely remember the Flintstones. So Fruity and Cocoa Pebbles. Wasn't Fred or Barney always like
Predator,
hiding
yeah,
out,
they were fighting over this cereal. My
freaking out?
son still eats, the Fruity Pebbles. Matter of fact, my son, he was on the side of the dye. I invited him to go. He's like, no, I want the dye in there.
Kids these days.
Yeah. So we're trying to reach him, but
It does taste so good.
it does.
It's too
It
bad.
does. Dude,
Ooh.
so this happened, recently. For whatever reason, I got on a Captain Crunch kick in the last year, and it was kind of on again, off again. And my wife's like, do you want me to get this or not? And I'm like, no, don't get it. And then she said, okay. And I'm like, no, I'm just kidding. Get it. I want, and I would get a big bag.
Recently.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, I told you I'm cold turkey for about over 2 months now. I just quit.
Good for you.
But before that, a couple years ago, I was eating the Reese Puffs and Cinnamon Toast Crunch. So, is there any Reese Puffs or Cinnamon Toast Crunch fans out there?
You would have been such a hypocrite if you'd showed up to that peaceful rally being a closet cereal eater.
Well, yeah, I know I didn't know that thing was coming. I'd already quit, but
oh, good.
Yeah.
You should have worn a Captain Crunch t-shirt just to see what would have happened.
I don't have a Captain Crunch t-shirt.
Oh.
So, but if I had one, I think I had Captain Crunch boxers once.
Oh
but yeah. Anyway.
Purchase the same day you got your crappy Halloween costume.
Oh yeah, you remember that? Yeah, I guess it is that time of the year again.
This is you got to tell the story because tomorrow's Halloween.
Pulsar Man, yeah. So, well, folks, I grew up in a divorced family. So, and my dad, my mom put my dad in charge of getting me a costume. And my dad was late to the game, and all the Superman costumes were sold out. And Vic, I'll never forget this. I remember we were at this store. The store now is there. The building's there. And it used to be called Zerrers or Zerrer. And that's the name of the store. I wonder if that was like an Ohio thing or if anybody had those anywhere else, like Zayre, Zerrers. We called it Zerrers. And my dad bent down. He got down on one knee next to me. He's like, they're out of Superman costumes, but they have this Pulsar Man costume. And he's like, Pulsar Man is awesome. And I'm like thinking, he doesn't look awesome, He had white hair.
Oh no, he's an old guy.
Yeah, he's like an old guy. Pulsar Man.
Oh no.
And my dad was telling me how cool Pulsar Man was. And he's bending down, and I can, he had that cigarette breath, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And he's like, Pulsar Man is cool. He's awesome,
Katie, we need a picture of this.
Yeah. So he convinced me, I hung on every word my dad said. He convinced me Pulsar Man was cool. And dude, if my dad said it, that was it. That was the gospel truth.
Mm.
So I went in to school with this Pulsar Man. I felt 10 feet tall, dude. Dude, I've got something nobody else has. And Vic, not one other person had a Pulsar Man costume.
It's true.
I'll tell you that. Yeah. So I walked in there, dude, 10 feet tall. And I remember going up to Frank. Frank had a homemade Superman costume, and it looked awesome.
Oh.
And I said, my dad said Pulsar Man is awesome. And Frank sucker punched me in the gut and knocked the wind out of me. True story, dude. And Vic, if I ever sucker punch somebody in the gut, the teacher would have saw it.
I
But
know.
nobody saw it.
I know.
Like he just like, you know, because of his Superman costume probably that caused him to do it. And he just punched me right in the gut and knocked the wind out of me. And I couldn't even tell on him because I couldn't breathe. I was like, and then by the time I could like catch my breath or talk, I mean, it happened, you know, it wasn't, I couldn't say it, this just happened. I mean, like 5 minutes it went by, you know. Anyway, yeah, that's my, thanks, Dad. That's my story about Pulsar, man.
Well, I know you save a lot of stuff. I'm wondering if you still have the costume.
I don't have that, no. I don't have it. There is a picture on my Facebook page, though, of me in the Pulsar Man costume. You can go over there and look at it. It pops up around this time of year because I told this story on Facebook, and yeah. Anyway, those days are behind me. Vic, I always felt like the monster cereals were kind of like Halloween cereals.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because they had these commercials that were kind of Halloween-y, you know?
Yeah.
And but speaking of Halloween, that's, you know, we're going to talk about this tonight a little bit here. It is that time of year. And I have just had a lot of thoughts, you know, over the years on this holiday. And it's something that we see people talk about on social media a lot. And so anyway, I don't feel like Halloween is as controversial as Christmas right now among our people. Okay. That's what I'm seeing out there.
Yeah.
You could get away with celebrating Halloween right now, but if you talk about a Christmas tree, I'm telling you, or anything like, if you even mention "Hark the Herald Angels Sing," dude, forget it. Because I tested it last year, and I had people jump in my case.
You got sucker punched.
Yeah, like "Silent Night," any of these songs about, you know, the incarnation of Christ. So anyway, but this is about Halloween. So I grew up, of course, in America, trick-or-treating. Did you do any of that?
Oh, yeah, of course. Absolutely.
And when I was a kid, it was awesome because we got to go out at night.
Yeah, without our parents.
Yeah. Yeah. And there were street lights. You would go, you know, door to door, trick-or-treat, had a bag of candy. I was actually a football player. And I had the jersey on of Tony Dorsett, my favorite Dallas Cowboys football player. Do you know who that is?
I do not.
Okay, well, somebody out there might know. But he was a big deal back in the day. I used to know all the Dallas Cowboys. Ed Too Tall Jones, Danny White, Tony Dorsett, Drew Pearson. I guess it's all coming back to me now. Yeah. Yeah, we went door to door. We got candy. And there were rumors about things like people putting needles and razor blades in. So we got that kind of warning. But and then, you know, as I get older, I'm starting to research, you know, this stuff. A late teenager going into adulthood. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think I want to do this anymore. This seems kind of not cool. So anyway, let's talk about this, okay? Because one of the things that I found out later on was not so much what people were doing on the surface, on the holiday part of it, but what people were doing underground where you couldn't see, okay? The witchcraft, the rituals, the, you know, the things like that, you know, were taking place. So tonight's the 30th. In 15 minutes, it's actually going to be Halloween, right? The 31st of October. In that exactly 6 months, it's going to be Walpurgis night, right?
Yep.
So we have these two very ritualistic holidays, set exactly 6 months apart from each other. Everybody makes a big deal about Halloween. Nobody talks about Walpurgis Night. Well, probably because nobody really celebrates Walpurgis Night as like a Hallmark thing. So I'm kind of blabbing here, but what was your experience like growing up, trick or treat and all that stuff?
Yeah, I do remember one year, and I was probably in junior high, maybe sixth, seventh, or eighth grade. I don't know. And there was such a hullabaloo about the whole razor blades and all that stuff. Like, I don't know. I mean, this was Satanic Panic era, right? And I remember lots and lots of kids, including me and my brother, were forbidden from going out. And it was pretty stark that Halloween. I wish I remembered what year it was, but and that was in Minnesota anyway. So I do remember that. But yeah, we would go out, and it's kind of funny. My brother's best friend in junior high, this kid was already 6 feet tall. This kid was like a monster, man. He had like size 15 shoes. And so my brother would try to go out trick-or-treating with his best friend, and they would just get yelled at every house because this adult was trying to get all the candy. Nobody knew this kid was an eighth grader. So yeah, my brother's experiences probably weren't as funny as mine, or as fun as mine. But yeah, I would always, like, whoever was my best friend at the time, and we'd have a sleepover, and we'd go out, and we'd come back, and mom would immediately be raiding our bags for the plain M&Ms.
So I guess, there wasn't really too much of a, I didn't really, for part of my youth, I didn't grow up in church. I spent some time away from church, and I didn't hear a lot about the warnings against Halloween. Okay. Now, what's going on with churches is they're doing things like trunk or treat and stuff like this. So, which I feel is really kind of uncreative. Like, I mean, if you're going to copy something, or if you're really going to do something Halloween, and I'm not saying that you should, but why are you just doing a lame version of the real thing? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like another example of how uncreative Christians can be. Anyway, I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
It's kind of strange where we spend every waking moment trying to teach our kids about stranger danger, and then we have one night a year where, like, adults are allowed to lure your kid to their trunk of their car. Like, it's just kind of weird. It's kind of creepy.
Good point. Good point. But when you mix it with church, I get why the world does it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know. I don't know. Like, I mean, I remember as a kid, I'm putting myself back into my junior high brain. There were things that I was forbidden to participate in, and all my friends did it. And I'm like, seriously, one more thing where I'm the odd duck. Like, like it's really a big deal when you're a kid and everyone's doing something and you're not allowed. That's embarrassing and hard as a kid. I still remember in ninth grade, and in fact, I think it was a Halloween movie, and it was a big deal because, like, Ozzy Osbourne was in it. I can't remember the name of the movie. It might have been called Trick or Treat, actually. I don't know. I was kind of a little bit of a metalhead, and all my friends were going to go, and I wasn't allowed. And I just remember, I mean, here I am in my 50s, and I still remember it because my parents weren't super restrictive, like to the point of being obnoxious. But I just remember how, and I mean, I even went to a private school. It was like a Christian school. And I just remember as a 14-year-old, that was just really hard for me to be left out. It was like this weird kind of form of rejection, right? So I understand it from the kid perspective. But if ultimately, at the end of the day, I mean, I guess for kids, different kids might have different reasons why Halloween's exciting to them. Like they might like being out at night with a flashlight, or they might like the hanging out with their friends or coming up with the costumes. But for me, it was all about the candy. So if my parents had said, you can't go trick-or-treating tonight, but I'm going to buy you like 2 pounds of candy, I would be like, fine with me. I'll stay home and eat my candy. So I don't know. I do think if the church was more aware of what really goes on, because I think even a lot of Christians, if you told them what really happens in the shadows this time of the year, they would go, wow, that's ridiculous. You know, I do think if more people knew what was really going on, it would affect them. And I'll tell a little story here. I hope it's okay to tell this. I was with friends on a Halloween several years ago, and I was asked if I would man the door and hand out the candy. And I said no. I mean, I'm usually a very compliant person. And I said no. And I was getting guff for it, like being accused of being like lazy or something like that. I can't remember. And so I got triggered, and I was like, look at here. And I just started explaining everything that was happening that night. And, you know, you're just going to make a joke out of this. And like, I mean, I really kind of lost it. And everyone in the family heard this, and they were really, really, really into Halloween, like hundreds of dollars worth of decorating, haunted house in the back, you know, maze in the backyard and everything. And interestingly, that family never celebrated Halloween again, including their teenager. The next year, the teenager who overheard me say that said, I don't want to do this anymore. So I do think that there are people where if they really knew what was going on, they would just instinctively, under conviction, just say, I want no part in that. I don't even want a part in the imitation of it. So I do think we have a lot of power. You don't necessarily have to do it the way I did, you know, where you're like freaking out on somebody. But again, this is just another area where I think that the church has failed to get educated, because this falls under the spiritual warfare umbrella. And I don't know about you, Tom, but I'm hearing more and more stuff like on social media, because obviously with the work that I do, I get a lot of flack from Christians saying, well, all you have to do is call on the name of Jesus. And well, if you're a Christian, demons can't hurt you. And I'm like thinking, there sure are a lot of scriptures about spiritual warfare if it's something we don't ever have to worry about. And so I don't know. I think it's a hard sell, because it's not only spiritual warfare, but you're talking about stuff that they debunked back in the 80s, and you start talking about it, and then you hear the satanic panic, and people just have a wall up in this area.
Yeah. And as we're talking about this is, you know, this is a serious part of the show, but I'm thinking about Taylor Ransom. Remember this guy? And
Yeah.
he's this Christian comedian. He does these skits, and he plays his mom, like talking about Halloween, and now she's got to drive. She's got to shut all the portals in the church because somebody had a harvest festival. I wonder if Katie can look that up. We should play that.
Gosh.
Taylor Ransom talking about Halloween and closing portals. But so anyway, no, I think that's super cool that you mention it that way and it had that effect. That's the way I feel about it personally. Now, a lot of people would be surprised, and we talk about this every year, and you're free to disagree with me. I'm not even saying I'm right. For the most part, I don't really think a lot about Halloween. I'm not worried about it, except for what happens underground. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
For me personally, I feel like it's yeah. Let's go ahead and let's play this. Is it a video? But there's no sound. Hold on.
No.
Still work on it. Yeah. So
you can pray. Her son was caught watching Harry Potter last week. I know. I said that's what happens when you don't put your kids through Awana. Hold on. What is this Among Us game you're dressed at? Among Us? You know who's Among Us? Jesus. You know, I love Patty, but her kid tried to give my kid drugs last week. Okay, they say it's fun dip. I know what it was. That is spiritual warfare. That is, don't look over there, kids. There is increased spiritual activity this time of year. Okay, that's a fact. So put on your seatbelt and put on the full armor of God while you're at it. I'm looking at you, Josiah. We're going into the Halloween section. Okay, I am only here to find you a Bible character costume for Harvest Festival. Don't touch anything. Don't look at anything. Don't open any portals. Josiah, you know we can't take this to Harvest Festival. It's got a jack-o'-lantern. Here, I plead the blood. I plead the blood. I plead the blood over that house. We break agreement. We break agreement with that right now. Oh my gosh, what is that? I told them no ghosts in this neighborhood but the Holy Ghost. They want to start this warfare with me? I'm an intercessor, and they know that. Stay in the car, Josiah. Stay in the car, Josiah. This is spiritual warfare. You're not prayed up for this. Learned that one at a Beth Moore conference. Okay, what are you, a raptor?
I'm a Tyrannosaurus Rex.
No, you're a lie of the enemy. I've been to the Creation Museum. I know Ken Ham. I get his monthly newsletter. You're extinct.
I just want some candy, lady.
You know what? Get off my property. This is my territory. I cast you out. I'm going to cast you out. Get over here. I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. I will call another meteor down upon you. I'll pray until it happens. I'm an intercessor. Spiritual warfare in this neighborhood these days is just off the walls. I need to go to another conference. What demonic decorations are they putting up now? You know what? I got to re-anoint the property line. I'm just not taking this amount of warfare. You know what? I might as well just go ahead and anoint the car too. Completely forgot. I love the spray. So much more convenient. Oh my goodness. Right out in the open. Why can't they just say happy fall? Happy Harvest Festival. Stay close, Josiah. I want you to stay close. Josiah, what is that? That is not a sword of the Spirit. Have you not heard Tasha Cobbs break every chain? I can't do this today. Here we go. Here we go. See, we serve the Lion of Judah, Josiah, not the deer of fear. Josiah, are you messing with a skull? My essential oils have not kicked in yet. Okay, I'm not ready to deal with whatever spiritual portal you're opening over here. Josiah, you've read the book of Revelation. What is that? Stay back. Stay. I bind it. I bind it. I bind it. Pam's got her dog out here dressed as a ghost again. You know what? I've never cast a devil out of a dog. Let's go for it. You know, I'm not taking any chances this Halloween. Okay, I'm anointing the doorpost. God, we thank you right now, God, that you're protecting our house, God, from everything undesirable, from the Harry Potter costumes to the Democrats. They're not coming in this house in Jesus' name. You know, I'm anointing the pumpkins too. I don't trust the Walmart employees.
So,
okay, I don't even have.
Anyway, I didn't know. Yeah, I've not seen that one before. I've seen some other ones. That's a brand new one. It might be brand new this year. Taylor Ransom, that guy is hilarious, and it's all tongue-in-cheek type stuff, right? The guy is a Christian, okay? By the way, he's not poking fun at Christians to be mean to them. So he grew up in churches, and he's just kind of, just having a little bit of fun with what he saw growing up, but I would say that he takes it more seriously than he's letting on. Anyway, I think that brings up a good point. Can this open up a door? I think sure it could. And that's why I say I don't really think about it that much, except for the stuff that goes on underground. I don't like seeing kids dress up like really dark stuff. But I mean, as far as the world is concerned, they're going to do that. You know what I'm saying? It really bothers me, I guess, when churches do it. And people that go to church, just like the people that you knew, I don't think they know exactly what goes on. And if they did know, for me, that's a deal breaker, because I know the rituals, I know the abuse, I know the things that are summoned and sent, and that this is a high holy day, for the dark side. So anyway, where was I? Yeah. I lost my train of thought, but that's nothing new here. Can Can it open up doors? I would say yeah. It can, depending on what your intention is, you know. And some people are not even okay with like the fall festivals or dressing up at all or any kind of masquerade. Um, I I don't like it when churches try to churchize something that's worldly, and it could be anything. I don't know. I don't even like, I think it's dumb when churches do Super Bowl parties personally, but that's me. Maybe if I like football, I would feel differently. But the holiday, not only is there this pagan satanic connection, but it's very sexualized, right? So, and it's kind of become, how risque can we get the women's costumes and, stuff like this. I remember, I don't know how long ago this was. It's probably been about 10 years ago. I was speaking at this metaphysical conference thing in Columbus. It was all real witches and stuff. And I was down there, and man, the warfare was really heavy. And then that night they had some kind of costume ball. So I was with two guys from Russ Disdar's team, and we went to the thing in the day, and we did ministry, we did outreach, and it was kind of weird. We got confronted by some pagans and stuff, and but then that night was the costume party. So we said, okay, we're going to go back and, check this out, not knowing, anything about this, because it had been years since I had been involved in anything like this. And I was kind of shocked to see what was going on. But anyway, I, when I was growing up, was not allowed to watch the show Bewitched. I don't want to say I was not allowed to watch it, but my grandfather did not like it when I did. But do you feel, I kind of want to ask this question, and everything is on the table, Vic, so we can come back and talk about anything. Do you feel it's a little bit hypocritical to opt out of Halloween, but I still like the Munsters and the Addams Family?
Oh, man. Each person must work out their own salvation with fear and trembling. Oh, it's interesting that you say that about your grandpa, though, because when my brother and I were young, now granted, there wasn't really a lot of offensive stuff on your like 3, 4, 5 channels, right? And we never had cable ever. But the only stuff we were never allowed to watch was anything that depicted a witch. So, like, I remember we couldn't watch The Electric Company because there was a recurring character where she was a witch. We didn't watch The Wizard of Oz. And I'm trying to think if there were other things. Of course, we watched Scooby-Doo, and that had a whole bunch of that kind of stuff in it. But, I don't know. But for all I know, I was probably 18 when I was watching Scooby-Doo anyway.
Dude, the one Scooby-Doo, like Scooby-Doo and like these 13 demons or something like that. They kind of like redid the show and relaunched the show one time. There was some dark stuff in there. I remember that. And I was like looking, I'm like, man, I felt guilty watching it because I knew my grandfather wouldn't approve of it. So
you know what's interesting? Speaking of Scooby-Doo, technically, if you really look back at that, at the end, there was all this paranormal stuff going on, right? There's all these ghosts and everything, but at the end, it was always just some guy in a mask, right? And it was almost like it was a bait and switch. But what the message you're actually getting across to little children is, anytime you think you see a ghost, it's just some crook in a mask. There's a logical explanation to it, and it's really interesting because that Netflix series Evil, so many people have come and asked me if I've seen it because there's a sleep paralysis demon in the first several episodes. And I remember us talking about this a while back, Tom. I don't know if you remember. And after a few episodes, we had this aha moment where it's like, they are basically saying all of this stuff is always has a logical explanation. So in other words, it was like the adult version of Scooby-Doo. You know, you get to the end of every episode thinking this is something demonic, and it's almost like the filmmakers are mocking Christians and Catholics, like, hey, gotcha, it was just this logical explanation and you thought it was a demon the whole time, you idiot. You know, and I do think that there's a lot of that kind of, you know, I hate the buzzwords, gaslighting. You know, it looks like this horror movie. It looks like it's portraying the reality of the supernatural and the demonic, and then at the end, you just find out it's a dude in a mask, and that's just a form of mockery, and makes my job harder because I got to deal with Christians every day online who think it's absolutely ridiculous that I think that a Christian would ever encounter spiritual warfare.
So, okay. I think, were we talking about this yesterday? I think my daughter and I were talking about this yesterday. And I mean, I think this is kind of an easy one, but Lord of the Rings versus Harry Potter, or even Star Wars versus Harry Potter, or a C.S. Lewis, you know, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Yeah.
So why are Christians okay with, you know, one and not the other? I mean, do you want to tackle this, or?
I'll give you a really simple-minded approach. I think if you tell Christians that an actress or an actor or a musician or a writer is a Christian, they don't think about what they're watching.
Mm-hmm.
They're just like, oh, it's church approved because this person proclaimed that they were a Christian, you know, which is a little bit hypocritical because whether she is or not, I don't know, but J.K. Rowling claims to be one too. But I could actually say a lot on this topic, and it probably wouldn't be very popular. I think that as long as a Christian can see a gospel analogy or allegory in a movie, they think it's okay because they see their gospel in it, whether that's what the writer intended or not. So now you're getting into the depths of literary theory and criticism, that once a writer writes something, it really doesn't matter what they had in mind. If a feminist wants to take that work and make it into a feminist novel or whatever, it no longer belongs to the author when it's put out into the ether. This is the whole genre of literary theory and criticism. That's what it means. Like once you write something. So if you throw something out like Star Wars and you say the Force, like, okay, Darth Vader and the Emperor represent Satan, and you know, Luke Skywalker is the good guy, and I don't know, like, I kind of feel that as long as someone sees a gospel allegory, they think that it's okay. And I will tell you, in my youth, kind of in high school and college, I had Christians recommending to me movies that they absolutely loved because it had a redemptive arc. And so I went naively out to watch the movie and was mortified at the abject, like, violence and bloodshed. And so, yeah, just be like, if the good guy wins in the end or someone lays down their life for someone, yeah, you could say that that has a, you know, redemptive arc to it. But does that mean I want to sit through 2 hours of, you know, brutal assaults? And you know what I mean? So I just think sometimes we can go a little too far in the excuses we make for why something is good to watch. I mean, I tend to think as a writer that the Bible is the greatest story ever told. And it's got every classical literature story arc in it. There's classic characters. You've got the reluctant hero, and you've got the hero, and you've got the Messiah figure. And, you know, if you go back into Greek literature, with like theater, they explain this is a perfect plot line. This is the perfect cast of characters. This is the perfect arc. And a lot of that stuff is modeled after, you know, the author of everything. You know, if anyone knows how to tell a good story, it's Jesus. And so in a sense, every book and every movie you watch is in a sense is going to follow the arc of the stories that we read in scripture. So to turn that around then and say every movie I watch is great because I see a Messiah figure in there, I see redemption in there. Sometimes I just wonder if that's the flesh making excuses for watching a bunch of trash.
Vic, no, I think those are some very good points. I think this is what I think. I think if we are sensitive to God's Spirit, we're reading God's Word, we're in prayer, we're in communication with God, He's going to show us what we should and shouldn't be involved in. And there are a lot of people that are not, how do I say this? Well, they're not sensitive to the Holy Spirit. Okay. Now, have you ever went to somebody's house and looked at their DVD collection and you're like, wow, okay. I didn't know this. Yeah, I didn't know that. Right. But I have stuff in my DVD collection that people would come to my house, and be like, I can't believe, Tom watched this movie or whatever. Okay. When my oldest son was growing up, I didn't have a lot of rules for what I would allow him to see, except for anything, nothing sexually explicit or anything like that. But I wish I would have been more careful with him. I learned over time, and my youngest son, I protected him a lot more, and I wish I would have been more protective of my oldest son. But when my younger son got to a certain age, he was mature enough to handle themes that he wasn't able to handle before. So my wife, God bless her, and I'm not picking on her, she's not here to defend herself, but she would admit that this is true because this wasn't on her radar. She would bring home movies from the library. She worked at the library. And I would be like, okay, send this back. I don't want the kids watching this. I don't want, the big reason I don't like Harry Potter is because the hero is a witch. I don't really think much of it. To me, it's boring. I remember I watched, before I started doing what I do now and before I met Russ Dizdar, I watched maybe 4 of the movies. And it was just, I thought it was okay, this is interesting. Let's see what happened next. I'm not really afraid of witches. I'm not afraid of my kids wanting to do witchcraft or anything like that. This is a story. Not saying that it hasn't had an effect like that on a generation, because I think it has. Okay. And I think because the church has come against it so hard, it's really kind of pushed people and drawn people to it. Not saying that the church was wrong for doing that. So anyway, I didn't think much of it, but once I started training with Russ Dizdar, I'm like, yeah, Voldemort's kind of a wimp. He's not scary to me. The authority of Christ, the blood of Jesus would just knock him out in a second. So it got real boring to me. I don't really see anything super redeeming about the story where I could take it and use it as any kind of an illustration. Now, I will say this, that I have watched the movie with my son, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, which when he was old enough and he asked, and we watched it together, and I explained to him, this is a true story. By the way, the movie is very accurate to what happened. Okay. And the girl's real name was Annalise, and it happened in Germany, I think. So I think with art, with music, you got to be very careful protecting your kids and, protecting your own heart. The Bible says in Proverbs, above all else, guard your heart, for it's the wellspring of life.
Yeah.
And how do I want to say this? So I'm gonna skip over something right now, but we have to kind of know how we are not, I guess we want to make sure we're not sheltering them too much, because
Mhm.
it's going to want them, they're going to have curiosity about it. And I would rather my son see something while he's sitting next to me than out on his own thinking that he's rebelling against me. So my kids have probably seen all the Harry Potter movies, and not, just over the years, whether on TV or whether, there was one here or something like that. When my girls were younger, they watched what were the vampire movies? I can't remember what they were. Twilight.
Right.
And I didn't like that because I felt like it promoted lust among young girls.
Mm.
So anyway, and I think we got to be very careful about what we allow them to see, but we need to be involved. I'm just reading one of the comments here about Russ Dizdar. God had Russ Dizdar come across the screen of my life. Wow. So yeah, it's so amazing, how many people Russ has reached and how many people found out about Russ. And the thing about Russ is when you hear his voice, you're like, wow, I'm hearing the voice of somebody that cares. So people are like immediately pay attention, to him. So I just want to read that real quick. I saw that pop up there, and I love hearing, stories like that about Russ. So by the way, speaking of Harry Potter, Russ, I think he read the first Harry Potter, and there was his comment was this. He said there was nothing in there about God. God was completely, gone from the story. He said, I didn't see anything directly. This was Russ. This is what Russ said. And I'm not saying he's right. I haven't read the book. Okay. But there was nothing alarming to him that was outright straight from an occultic source. It was all make believe and fantasy. And you know what I'm saying? It was all fake witchcraft. Okay. Not saying that you couldn't take some of that and use it, because demons are very, they don't care. They're looking for any invite that they can get. You don't have to do any kind of special, you know what I'm saying, spell for them. So people may not like my just kind of my thoughts about this. I think we got to be very careful about what our intentions are. We got to be careful about sheltering, but also exposing. If my son has questions about something, and I'm talking about my youngest son now, even if it's difficult, I want to be the one to answer the question, not somebody else, not from somewhere else. There's been many times where he's come to me and said, I want to see this movie, or I want to see that movie. And I'm like, no, I don't think you should. I don't think you should. And this is the reason why I don't think you should. It's not going to be good, for you here or here. And the same thing with some music, so, but he's going to be, he's going to be his own man, pretty soon. And he's going to be able to make his own decisions. And we're just trying to train them to, to protect themselves while they're young. That way, when they get older and they have the freedom, hopefully they guard their heart as well. I've been all over the place, Vic. Pull me back in.
No, I think this is a great discussion, especially for this time of the year. And, we've talked about this before too. A lot of us who grew up in the 80s, because it was what was available and it was what was popular and it was what the kids were doing. In addition to a lot of the metal, it was really a lot of us were raised on horror movies. And so you think about, a decade or so of that kind of stuff being pumped into a 14 to 18-year-old mind, you know what I mean? And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of movies I wish I had never seen. Now, they're not seared into my brain and bothering me or anything at the moment, but I remember that there were movies, and I know you've told stories in the past with Evangeline, I think with The Grudge.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain movies that at the time that I saw them, they were deeply, deeply disturbing to me. And I don't know that I necessarily had nightmares or anything because of them, but they ended up shaping my perspective of how to trust other human beings, basically, right? Like if you know, you got all these people going for a slumber party and then they're all getting slaughtered, you know, and I mean, when you've got a young, pliable mind and all of these things are turning into bloodshed and perversion, it really, I can't imagine the Holy Spirit was pleased having to sit through that smut, you know, and I've long since repented of it, you know, but you know, there's even stuff that we watch that we think, you know, has got this really great, innocent, wonderful message. And because we are so far removed from esoteric information, we don't even realize sometimes the undertones of what we're watching. And so I'll just give you one example, you know, in biblical demonology, if you go all the way back and you study how other cultures going all the way back in time, and like Mesopotamia and the Sumerians and all that, the incubus, which is the male energy demon that basically assaults children and women, little girls and women, they were in lore, they were the fawns. They were these goat demons. They were half men, half goat with the cloven feet. And man, that sure blew my paradigm open as someone who was raised on the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. You've got a little girl who goes into a wardrobe and crosses a threshold into another dimension. She's immediately met by a fawn. She's taken to his house. She's basically drugged, the food and drink that he gives her. She wakes up all groggy, and he's apologizing for being a bad fawn. It's right there, guys. It's disgusting. And it knowing what Lewis and Tolkien knew about mythology, I mean, these guys were Oxford professors in English and literature. You can't convince me for 1 second that Lewis didn't know what he was really writing there. That's deeply distressing to me.
No, well, that's fascinating, and of course, I remember, you know, that scene, especially from the new versions of the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So, and as I think that was probably the darkest part in that whole, you know, in that whole movie. It was really creepy. So in relation to everything that we're talking about, and I'm trying to figure out how to tell this story. I was talking to somebody recently who was with a group of people, and they were picking out a movie, and the person I was talking to picked out the movie. They were trying to find a movie that was appropriate, and they couldn't find anything that was appropriate for everybody. So finally, like, everybody agreed on Mary Poppins. Okay. And then I guess there was one family there was like, Mary Poppins, are you crazy? Do you know about Mary Poppins? You know, and they went on about, you know, Mary Poppins and how wicked and evil it was, and for all of these reasons. So, you know, I guess at some point it's like you ask yourself, okay, when do we just lock everything out, you know, lock ourselves away and not have any contact with the world or not? I'm not saying that if anybody has a conviction about Mary Poppins, you're wrong or anything like that. I definitely have convictions about things that people will be like, are you serious? Really? You have a problem with that? You know, and then vice versa. And I'm not justifying any of it or saying anybody's wrong. There are reasons, you know, that we have these biases or these convictions. We, for the most part, I feel like we should be kind of uniform. You know what I'm saying? If we're reading the same Bible and we're serving the same God, you know, we should be on the same page. But Vic, I'll tell you what, for me, I was living a very worldly, carnal Christian life for a long time. And I justified a lot of things. Okay. And there'd probably be some people that would say that I wasn't saved, and you would be justified in saying that. The only thing I know is every time I went to bed at night, I was begging God for forgiveness. And I was I was talking to God a lot, and I felt God loving on me, even though I was not where I needed to be, and I was a mess. But I loved horror movies. I went to a convention probably a couple times and met the actors that were in the movies, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and some of this other stuff. And for whatever reason, there was a point in my life where I was looking for something to have an effect on me. Like I was looking at horror movies like I was trying to take a drug. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like you're looking for a drug that's going to get you high enough.
Yeah.
And I was looking for that for whatever reason. I had an interest in that. But then when I met Russ and when I learned about all this stuff, all that interest went away and it was boring to me because I knew these people, that I was, for whatever reason, giving some kind of power or lifting up in my mind as powerful people or scary people. They lost all their power and they were wimpy and weak once I understood the authority of Christ and the power of Christ and the full armor. So I'm just thinking that we're being very transparent here. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not trying to, we're just being honest. I wish I could say, guys, I'm a super Christian and I've never watched a bad movie and I've never watched Harry Potter or did Halloween or anything like that. The Bible says, it talks about witches. And when we are imitating witches, I mean, it says don't suffer a witch to live, but is it okay to imitate a witch or to be entertained by one or to, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In any way? I don't know. I'm going to leave this show tonight and I got to make a decision every day, just like everybody else. Okay. And we pick up our cross. I feel like I don't know. Help me bring this home because I feel like I'm dropping the ball. Sometimes I'm too honest. You know what I mean?
No. I love where you're going with that because I mean, believe me, oh my gosh, if you went back into my teen years, if people saw my music collection and the movies I watched, I mean, good grief. And kind of like you, I was same thing. Like you're trying to chase down some emotion, and some sort of and I think for me, it was kind of like armor, which what an insult to God, who says, I'm your rock and I'm your refuge. The name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous run to it and they're safe. But I needed this armor. And I thought that if I put on this facade, like I'm not afraid of roller coasters and horror movies and I listen to metal and I wear black, like that somehow people would get the hint that I was like way tougher than I really was. And maybe they'd leave me alone. So it was like this self-protection sort of a thing. But man, like, once you grow out of that and you strip off that armor, you still have the baggage of all that crap in your non-conscious mind, And so I think we've all been there. If we all had to write down, things throughout the decades that we went to for entertainment, the troughs that we all ate out of, I think we'd all be a little embarrassed, right? But I think you hit the nail on the head a few, minutes ago, Tom. Everything on this planet is tainted, right? The chemtrails of sin have floated down to the surface and soaked into everything. And so Proverbs 4:23, you hit it on the head. Above everything else, guard your heart. And so even if you're reading a Christian book or you're listening to a sermon or you're watching a movie made by a Christian person, you still have to have your guard up. You still have to be sober-minded and vigilant. You still have to test every spirit. We have to constantly be on guard. Our enemy is a lion prowling around. He wants to eat us so that there's nothing left of us but a couple of bones.
Yeah. Yeah. So I used to love these movies and I lost interest in them, but there was a movie that came out a few months ago that there was a lot of hype around it. And I'm like, you know what? I want to see this movie. And I don't ever watch these movies anymore. It was called Long Legs. Okay. Remember when this movie came out?
No.
And I talked about it. And I saw a few things in the trailer and I'm like, okay, what is up with this? These guys know something, and I wanted to find out what it was about. So this is kind of crazy. And if you don't watch this show and you haven't heard this story, you're going to think this is crazy. So my daughter from college was in town and she is 19 years old. So this is going to sound crazy, Vic, but I thought, you know what? I'm going to invite her to see this movie with me. And she's always wanting to see something weird or freaky. And I thought, you know what? This could open up a good conversation between her and I. Okay, because she's my stepdaughter is well, I don't know. She's our relationship is a good one, but I don't always know what's going on inside of her head. Okay. So we watched this movie and it's about Nicolas Cage plays this weird serial killer type stuff. And there's some spiritual things in there. And there was a lot of hype because it was very stylized. Okay. And so we went and then we went out for ice cream afterwards and we talked for probably over an hour. And she just asked me question after question after question about what I do. She's like, have you ever seen this? Have you ever seen that? And I got to tell her things related to the movie and about spiritual things and share these things with her. And she just sat and listened to me. And it was an amazing night. It was so great. Wow. And that I strategically used that movie, and I'm not endorsing that movie and I'm not recommending that movie. I don't think it was horrible, but it was a little bit weird, but very stylized. But anyway, I'll tell you that movie that night worked for me, and it was a great tool for us to have a conversation and connect in a way that we haven't. And people are going to think that's weird, whatever. You don't know the details of the situation. And obviously I'm protecting my daughter because I'm not saying everything, but so
yeah.
But anyway, that's an example of, Russ would watch these movies, by the way. Anytime there was anything that came out about Satanism, about the paranormal, Russ was there in the theater, not defending Russ. And he didn't watch it for entertainment. Okay. And I went to one of these movies. We went and saw The Right together early on when I first met him. He invited me up to Akron. He's like, hey, there's this new movie. I think it was Anthony Hopkins. And it was about a priest. He's like, and he wanted to know what was being said in entertainment about this subject. And he pretty much didn't miss a thing. And he watched things that I'm like, I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that. And I found out in some things, I'm like, I was kind of surprised later on to find out that he watched it. And he put it under research, and I don't think it had an effect on him the way that it did other people. Everybody, I think, is different. Of course, we look at Russ as a, spiritual giant. He was a man just like us, and he just had more experience than we all did. So, but anyway, Vic.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to push to the back of my head a bunch of Nicolas Cage jokes since you brought that up, but I'll move on. Yeah, I had a really good conversation once with Russ about the movie Split. And he said that was one of the more accurate depictions he ever saw of DID or SRA related DID. And he said someone who wrote that film knew what they were talking about, had some sort of inside scoop. But we even talked about that when we saw Nefarious, and how there were little Easter eggs in that movie that if you're in the know, you're like, okay, whoever wrote this knows a few things that the average person does not know about this topic. So I do think that Hollywood knows all. They know what's going on, and they will occasionally tell you that they know if you know what to look for.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember at the very first conference that the one I met Russ at, there were some people there that were in the know, and they were, I don't want to say this movie because I don't want anybody to watch this movie. But they told me about a movie that I had heard of, but never watched. And they're like, yeah, I have a copy of it. I'll give it to you. Like, they had a burnt copy on a DVD or whatever. And I was like, I was kind of shocked about, the movie. And there were, whoever made that movie they knew what they were doing. They knew there was a lot of Illuminati and mind control stuff in there, and truth. It was, crazy. So anyway, I probably would make people mad. I won't mention the movie, but
it's disturbing to me, Tom. There's things that I read or watched in adulthood, but when you're a writer, you'll sometimes watch things like, I was writing a young adult fiction novel at the time, so I was just kind of looking at what was out there, what's popular. And it's funny, there were things that I read and watched maybe 10 to 15 years ago, just thinking it's these like kids movies. And I remember at the time having like a sense like, this is weird or this is creepy. And then visiting it years and years later after I had my, red pill moment, and realizing these are flat out stories of kids who are basically probably ritually abused. Like I could not believe how much of that is being peddled in young adult fiction. I remember one time I was at a bookstore, and it was a used bookstore. So I was waiting at the bookstore for them to tally up, the stuff that I was selling. And so I was curious this was around the Twilight era, but a little bit after. And I went down, I went to the back to the young adult fiction section because it was the only section that had a chair, and I just wanted to sit down and look at my phone. And so I was sitting right next to a display table that had all of these books out for teens. And I ended up taking pictures of them because every single book on the table, and it's not like it was October or anything, every single one had a theme of a teenage girl who went to school and fell in love with the cute boy, and the boy was a fallen angel, an angel, a demon, a vampire. And like, I know they're following the Twilight trend, but there was not one book on that table that did not have a blatantly demonic theme, but they're mixing it with young adult romance. And I couldn't believe it. And I thought, what is a preteen girl supposed to read anymore? I used to love to read. Holy
that was real big a few years ago, that trend.
Yeah, just disgusting.
Yeah, wow. I forgot something else I was going to say, but it's all right. I don't know if we stayed on topic tonight or not. We were kind of all over the place. And guys, I would just say draw as close to the Lord as possible, and He's going to speak to you. There are things that I like that war against my spirit and I can't participate in. My flesh likes it. We talk about music a lot on here. There's a lot of music I like, but it's a deal breaker for me, and it just wars against my spirit. And some is worse than others. I like Johnny Cash. Johnny Cash talks about killing and going to prison and, all this stuff. Some people would not be okay with that, I guess. I don't know. I mean, It's that sentence that I said there sounds a little bit crazy, right? It may be hypocritical, but I think people know what I'm talking about. It's it has that redemptive arc again, right? Or sometimes not, the outlaw music or whatever. So, but I think Johnny Cash is a good example of somebody who in their personal life has been redeemed. So, and they had that kind of persona, in the early on in the middle of their career. So it's I think it's a real life example, that we can use again as an illustration. Before I came on the air tonight, I had Glenn Campbell songs stuck in my head because a video popped up of Glenn Campbell, and I just bought this book for my mom at Ollie's about Glenn Campbell's life. He was a Christian, and it apparently it tells his testimony. But he's the one that sang this song, Rhinestone Cowboy. If you're wondering, Vic.
Dude, that's funny you'd say that. Here's a little trivia. When I was 10 years old, I took a summer school class to learn acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
And it was really hard because when you're 10 years old, those acoustic guitar frets are pretty wide. I really struggled. But Rhinestone Cowboy was the first song I learned to play on.
Really? That's funny. That's funny. So, yeah. Anyway, that's what's going on in our lives, folks. Countdown to the election. We didn't even get into that craziness. What are the possibilities of what could happen? Vic, I'll just be glad when sign season is over. Who are we supposed to vote for? The person with the most signs?
Yeah.
Or the biggest signs, or
yeah,
whatever. It's kind of crazy. I don't really do signs. It's the only thing, the only people that are going to see it are my neighbors, and I don't want to make them mad. And it's not like my neighbor's going to see, oh, Tom's voting for that dude, I guess I'm changing my vote. Like, they care who I'm voting for.
Well, and I think you have a neighbor across the street with a vote for Hecklefish 2024.
Yeah, and I don't even know what that means, but yeah, I do. What does that mean? Can you explain it since you brought it up?
I can. So there's a YouTube channel called the Y-Files, and they do a lot of conspiracy theories and woo kind of stuff. And the guy will like narrate, and he has this fish, like a clownfish, and he has a very pronounced Jewish accent, but his name is Hecklefish, and the fish is just there to like make fun of the guy who's hosting. So he heckles the guy. So yeah. So apparently your neighbor wants Hecklefish for president.
Okay, cool. I didn't know. I thought it might have been. I didn't know it was going to be all that. That's weird. So
the chat knows. They're in the know. They've heard.
Okay, cool. Somebody says, "Beware the crab cat." Is that one of the characters?
Oh, I think, Sam, is it a line? Is it something that Hecklefish says? I'm trying to remember. Oh, Hecklefish is always saying, "The moon landing was fake." I remember that one.
Okay, I'm out of the loop, but that's not unusual. Vic, hey, it's so good to hang out with you again, my friend.
Absolutely.
We'll have to do it again sometime. Guys, thank you so much for everything that you do, for hanging out, for watching the show, for watching in the archives, for giving us a thumbs up, for sharing the show. When you share it on your social media, that's how other people find out about us. All that stuff. Thank you for the prayer support, for the financial support. If anybody doesn't know, there is a place on the website where you can support Through the Black financially. That's always appreciative. There's a lot of ministry that goes on behind the scenes, off the show, that we do, and most of it lately has been involved with the church that I'm working with, and it's been a great opportunity. We're going to be doing Freedom Encounters, and we're going to let you know when that happens, because we're going to be doing Freedom Encounters in person, and then also over Zoom, over the phone. So you don't have to live in my town to have a Freedom Encounter if anybody needs one. We're going to be doing it that way. We're going to be training people. This is all partnering with Through the Black. So it's been a long ride, and it's nowhere near over. You guys are amazing. I'm just blown away. And we got Katie on the ones and twos behind the scenes. We were going to try to keep her moving tonight, but we were all talk and no show. So anyway, one of these days, we got just amazing people that make this stuff happen, and it's just super cool. So Vic, I hope you have a great day and a great week, and we'll figure out when we're gonna do this again. Sound
Absolutely.
cool?
Looking forward to it.
So, all right, guys, we will see you next time. Bye.